Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu as-salamu alayka ayyuhan nabi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
MashaAllah. Before I start the new retreat, inshallah, or the introduction to it, can I just check how many people that are in this room are in the full Itikaaf? MashaAllah. And how many of you are for just Nawafil or a couple of days and so forth? MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. One of the things that happens as we get closer to Eid, and tomorrow might well be the last Taraweeh that we offer, and Tuesday may well be the last fast, should Allah allow us to live that long. And as things come to a close, because we've been familiar with the program now, it can lead to some procrastination. Have you heard that term? Familiarity breeds what? Yes, Brother Abdullah. Yeah, he said something along the lines of laziness, i.e. contempt. He's absolutely right. When you get familiar with a program, when you're not refreshing yourself or your intentions, you can become quote unquote lazy. You're not taking it as seriously as you should. Now it's really up to you how much you benefit from this itikaaf, how much you benefit from what's happening. But there's one thing that if you're choosing not to benefit, fine. And there's another thing if you're stopping other people benefiting. Now the situation is a lot more dire. Because you don't have to attend, you don't have to participate, you don't even have to stay awake, Brother Junaid. Yes? Because I can see some of you dozing around. That's fine. You don't have to do any of that. But what you shouldn't be doing is getting other people not to engage. And that can happen in a number of different ways. For example, if you're loitering in the hallways, if you're just sitting there by the shoe rack, if you're there's no urgency even though the dars is going to start, whether it's mine or anyone else's, then you're going to put other people off as well, as if that's an acceptable course of action. There's one thing that someone has to have a shower. There's another thing if you just want to have a shower just before a time for a dars. But even if you have to have a shower, you have the choice of what time you could have woken up. Because in terms of sleep, what time did we break up after the Sunnah adhkars? 4 o'clock. Can someone do the math between 4 o'clock and 11 o'clock this morning and tell me how many hours that gives you? 7 hours. And then you'll get 2 later today. Let's say you only sleep for 1.5 hours of that. That's 8.5 hours. I sleep more in Itikaaf than I do at home. And I'm not joking. Partly why I probably come here. But on a serious note, especially those who have children, I have 4 young children, I get a lot more sleep in Itikaaf in the entire year than I do at home. Now you have to ask yourself that especially of those of you who are only here for a few days, who have only just come, and then if you're finding yourself loitering, if you're finding yourself just chatting in the hallways or in the stairs, you really need to recheck your intentions as to why you're here, because it does have an impact on other people. It does give this impression that we're not taking this seriously. And that is serious if it's putting other people off, because equally it would be serious if you were putting someone else off the deen, and so you're stopping other people from benefiting. Now that's a reminder to myself and to others that we should be taking this a bit more seriously, or if you're not prepared to take it a bit more seriously, then not for the ones that are in Sunnah Itikaaf, but for the others, then don't loiter, just go outside. Do something that's going to benefit yourself and benefit others, inshallah. So what we're doing today, inshallah, is we're beginning the Muhammadan openings. They're effectively another retreat. Because what do we say? How many retreats are there in this Itikaaf program? How many? 3. The first one was Sorry, say that again. Other than Brother Zafar. Spiritual ascension, yes. The second one was? Stop for a moment. What was spiritual ascension in essence? Yes, you were learning how to enter the other realm. You were learning the ascension, the miraj of the. You learn that methodology of the tazkiyah of the ladais, like cleansing the ladais, everything that supports that, such as the 5 amals. You learn about the obstacles. All of those principles continue to apply. And then the second retreat we had, what was that? I'm not sure if people have just forgotten or if everyone's just being a bit shy. Salah, yes. Okay. And what was a Salah retreat about? In essence, what did you get from that? If anything. Brother Kashif. Brother Zafar, do you mind just bringing the mic around? And also the brothers that are sitting right at the back, do you just mind taking the 2 back rows? If you just bring your chairs and just put them on this side, please just make a row at the back here.
Bismillah. The essence of the Salah retreat was how to combine the outward and inwardly spiritual prayer with the outwardly prayer.
Yes.
And how we could ascend and combine the life with the prayer.
The life with the prayer. So there were broadly 2 pieces. There's establishing prayer, as in fact what Brother Qashi was saying. You offer your prayers, and then yesterday Shaykh Ahmad Dabar went through quite eloquently that. So there was offering the prayer, and then there was establishing the prayer. You're someone that's established the prayer in your life, and then, as Brother Qashi rightly said, and the other aspect of what you learned was that how to have a prayer of a believer, and a miraj prayer that when you enter your prayer, you can inshallah have a spiritual prayer, you go to these different areas and so forth. So that was, in essence, the retreat, the Salah retreat. Now what we're going to do is the Muhammadan retreat. And the focus on this retreat is having mushahada, companionship, presence, meeting, who? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Absolutely. So that's what the focus is going to be here. Now, the topic that I'm going to cover briefly will be around the Shamail. What will it be around? They go that every Muslim household, whether they're in the East or the West, what book should they all have on their bookshelf, which hopefully they read as well? The Shamail of Al-Tirmidhi. Yes? They say that it was one of his the blessings, or when Allah accepts something, that is accepted or is prevalent in the Muslim world from the East to the West. That's a sign of something that's been accepted. Even our fuqaha, in everything that we do, there's always a spiritual element in how, in the concept of the acceptance. So the Shamail, is this new for anyone? Okay, mashallah. But even if it wasn't new for you, it's something that Shamail is something you should be reading often. You should be familiarizing yourself. Why? What does the Shamail do? No, just raise your hands, please. I think Brother Zaffar's got the microphone.
Okay, well, I'll bring the mic over if anybody wants to answer that.
Can you pass it to Brother Mizan, please?
Assalamu alaikum. Basically, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what it meant and what it is, so I'm just learning. So I don't know the answer. I'm going to be totally honest.
MashaAllah.
Feedback information now.
But so Brother Mizan reminds me that what is the attitude you're supposed to have when you come to learning? That you don't know anything. You have to be effectively empty vessel. So Brother Mizan was giving us a demonstration of the optimum way to come to a gathering of learning, i.e. the fact that you say that I don't know anything. That's, as Hazrat Sahib said, that's half of all knowing. That you know that which you don't know. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm just going to ask the brother just behind you and behind him, right at the back row. Because what is my policy? I always ask people at the back.
Me?
No, I don't. You, mashallah. You miss one and the next brother. I did give you brothers the option not to be on the back row, but alhamdulillah.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Alhamdulillah, good. Everyone is coming with the right attitude. Are there people sitting behind the people on the chairs?
Sorry?
Are there people sitting behind the people on the chairs?
2 people.
You can pick any one of those 2. And if they could kindly stand up when they answer, so I can see who they are as well, mashallah.
Yeah, I think this one knows the answer. That's why he's jumped up.
Shamail is the description of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
The description of the
Prophet sallallahu alaihi
So,
wasallam.
and what type of description is the Shamail?
Physical description.
Sorry?
Physical description.
The physical description. That's absolutely right. So, Brother Abid, do you want to join us slightly closer? I can't see the brothers that are sitting there behind there. Okay. I'll say it for your benefit, inshallah. You won't get picked on again. Inshallah. Anyone else want to add to that?
This is not only physical description, actually. This is the adat of Prophet. How does he wear? How does he used to eat? How does he used to walk? How does he have the relationship with his wives and all those?
Absolutely, they're all correct. And equally, the other brother was correct as well. It is about the description of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, and then it'll come up, inshallah. Mashallah, we're having a grammar discussion, I think, at the front. As Dr. Shahid said, it's also about the clothing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Shamail builds on the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam looks, the clothing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what he sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to wear in terms of Hazrat went through jewelry, for example, how he was, etc., etc. Now, here's a question to you: why do you think the Shamail is so important? Why have our scholars spent time writing about the features of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Brother Hussain, the mic's coming.
Is it so that we can, in terms of getting close to Allah, we can follow the example that the Prophet ﷺ used and apply that to our daily lives and our daily actions?
Yes, absolutely. Anyone else? Maybe the brother from Nelson at the back, inshallah. Next to Imran. The one that's looking to his right, to his left.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Brother Imran.
So I guess in place of the fact that we don't hold images of the Prophet ﷺ, this is the only way we can get to know what their physical character and their beauty look like, and inshallah look to adopt it for ourselves.
Yes. Can someone give me... I want more than that. What everyone has said is absolutely correct. But surely there's more to than just saying the Prophet ﷺ didn't have any. We don't have any pictures of the Prophet ﷺ, so therefore, this is the way that we know how the blessed Prophet looked. Bazafar, there's a brother right in the back. He's actually put his hand up. MashaAllah. Bonus points for him.
If you keep your hand up.
Extra bonus point because he's from Woking as well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Whatever the Prophet ﷺ did, it was perfect. It was perfection.
Correct. Again, I want more. Sorry, brother Abdul, he's absolutely right. It was perfect. It was perfection. But why are we still so concerned about that?
I think the reason why we have the Shamail al-Tirmidhi is because in order to build the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Absolutely.
Because love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is paramount in religion.
Yes, absolutely. The love is absolutely paramount. There has to be an affiliation, there has to be an attraction there. There has to be... Because what do people do when they love someone? They copy. Who said copy? Because what's the biggest compliment that you can give someone other than saying, "Oh, I think you're," it's giving them praise. What is the biggest compliment you can give someone? Obeying, following. What else is there? emulate them, absolutely. And the brother on the right, my right, said imitation. That's the biggest compliment that you can give someone, because when you begin, someone's your role model, someone that you aspire to, someone that you desire, you begin to imitate them. Sometimes a lot of people here have come with funky haircuts. What group of people generally have funky haircuts these days? Footballers. Yes, absolutely. People love to emulate them. I have a 7-year-old, 7, and he can tell me, he supports Chelsea, and he can tell me their background already. And there's people here, for example, that if I ask them about the Liverpool game, some people may have missed Tarawih because they had such love for their football team. It was the 27th night, it still seemed less. But if I was to ask you about your favourite player, you'd be able to tell me how many times they scored, which seasons they played. You'd be able to follow which club they started with, which club they went to. Why do you know all of this? Do you sit academically and read these books to understand? Do you have an encyclopedia of the footballer? How does someone know all of this? Because what absolute knowledge comes from the heart. When you're attracted to something, when you have a desire for something, then you just absorb that. See how even in terms of non-religious things, see how our heart, when it's inclined to something, whether we're imitating, whether we're learning, we're going to absorb them more. And that's no different for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The fact that if we want or we desire him, then we're going to absorb more about him. That's why our scholars have spent, why would someone dedicate the entire life just to focus on the description of the Prophet of Allah? Now, why am I mentioning all of this? Why am I building this all up? Because what is this retreat again about? The Prophet ﷺ, there's going to be a huge effort to get you to connect with the Prophet ﷺ, to connect physically with him, to connect spiritually with him, to inshallah have his ziyarah. That's what our entire focus is going to be. But you have to ask yourself as well, you have to check yourself and think, actually, how much do I actually want the Prophet ﷺ? Not by lip service, but by the fact that is he in your life already? Because just like footballers, when you want them, you want to be like them, they're in your life. You talk about them all the time, don't you? You absolutely do talk about them. They're constantly you're in their presence, effectively. And then you imitate them, and then you prioritize their games. All of these things happen. There's discussion, there's presence, there's imitation, there's priority. All of the key things when someone sits or ranks at the top in your life. All of those things occur, and so you have to ask yourself, where do I sit? I was listening to the fundraiser yesterday, and Haji Ramzan was talking about his experience. It was really profound. I found it. He was saying that what has brought him to the tariq, to the Itikaaf, and one of the things that I found really profound was he spoke about he wears a turban, for example, and I related to that experience because he said that in the time that he came, not a single person said to him that he should wear that or he should dress in a certain way. Now there are people that I'm seeing that have come to this Itikaaf, and I can see that they changed their dress sense, that they started adorning certain things, and I can say with almost certainty that no one would have said to them, you need to be dressed like this. But something makes you, there's something that stirs in the heart. You look around and you think, actually, this is what I want to do. Now that's the true reflection of what the Prophet ﷺ was. It was the fact that it was just being around him made you want to be like him. The entire, from the top to the bottom of this building, everyone that does the khidmah, no one's getting paid, it's all voluntary. Why would they dedicate their time? The Sheikh has never said to me, you need to be here. Never. So what is it that people dedicate or sacrifice their time? Because there's an affiliation, there's an affection there. There's a resemblance to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in there that we want to connect to. And therefore, that's why you have to ask yourself, where does this sit in your priorities? It goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. And that's why this effectively is, what's the objective of this session? I will go to a Shamail. It doesn't take very long because it's just talking about it's the description of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But what is taking slightly longer is to get everyone's mindset into the fact that where does the Prophet ﷺ sit for me? Now they speak of the Mashaikhs, and they say that of the days that have passed, i.e. in X hundred years ago or so, and I don't recall the name of the Mashaikhs and the student, is that important? The lesson that to take is going to be the importance. And the student was with the teacher, and one of the key things he wanted to do was have ziyarah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his dreams, waking state, whatever it might be. He wanted to have that ziyarah. And for what duration happened, for whatever reason it was, it wasn't working for him. He thought. Now, there's other things to do in the story as well, but the key thing was he then criticised or had a very frank discussion with the person that was teaching him or getting him to that stage. And the person stayed quiet, the Mashaykh, didn't say anything and said, okay. They go, from tomorrow, later on he said, from tomorrow can you avoid water, i.e. fast from water. So he stopped drinking water. Say a day went past or so. And then whether it was one night or two nights, then the teacher asked him, I think on the particular day, third or fourth, and said, how are you finding your sleep? What are you doing? He goes, I'm constantly, he goes, I had a dream, and I saw a dream where water was flowing, and I had a dream that I was drinking that water. And every time during the day, I'm consumed by thoughts of water. And then, because that became the priority in his life, that he had that desire for water. And because he had the desire for water, he was constantly seeing water. It was constantly on his mind. So in our 24 hours, how constantly is the Prophet ﷺ on our mind? How much do we think about him, or do we just treat it as a story? What I was talking about yesterday, i.e. does he just feature as a story in our lives, or do we actually try to think, actually I can resemble this person? Now, the final thing I'll say before I discuss the Shamail is the importance of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One thing that we should be clear about now is that none of us will know the true station of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam until which day? The day of judgment. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said himself that you will know his station on the day of judgment. He goes, that is my day. What does he mean by that? Why is that his day? Because that's when he will do his the great intercessions for us. That's when we will see the majesty of the Prophet ﷺ. We will see the manifestation of the love that Allah has for His Messenger. On that day, we will begin to realize. We have glimpses of because Allah loves us so much that Allah sent the thing He loved so much into this world, and only for the thing that He loved so much into this world, for that entity, for that beloved to be persecuted, to go through everything that they want. Because the love that Allah had for us as well, that He wants us to be successful. He wants us to adopt those sifats, those wonderful qualities of the Prophet ﷺ. That's how much Allah loves us, and He sent that which He loves so much here. So, now, going again, focusing on the importance of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the things that you would note that when the Prophet of Allah was walking this earth, what was his ultimate mission? What was he doing? Raise your hands, please. I need brothers offer to come exercise, I think. The brother's just here at the front. I'll just wait for the mic. Benefits to people.
The reason why we ask for microphone is there's people listening online as well, so they can hear.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Passing message to other people.
Passing the message to other people. And that message being?
The deen.
The deen. Okay. Anyone else? The brother is correct. The uncle at the front, please.
लोग दोज़ख से बच जाएं और सीधे रास्ते पे आ जाएं, क्योंकि उन्होंने देख लिया था जो कुछ है। वो जो दर्द उनके पास था, वो अपने दर्द को छुपाए हुए लोगों के पास जाते थे। बेशक पत्थर पड़े, जो भी पड़ा, उनको पता था कि क्या होने वाला है इनके साथ, इसीलिए वो बार बार जा रहे थे कि सब लोग बच जाएं, जितने बच सकते हैं बच जाएं, अल्लाह की रहमत से।
आमीन, माशाअल्लाह। One more person. Brother Abdullah at the back. What was the question he asks? Mashallah, he is engaged or he is somewhere else. Can you remind him what the question is? I can test the rest of you as well, especially those who are laughing. What's the question? This answer you can shout out. Oh, what was the question that I asked that two brothers at the front answered? Sorry? Yes. Yes. Sorry. What my question was? What was the importance? What was the motive of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What was he doing when he was here on the earth? What was his role? Now the two brothers have answered. It was correct. I just want to see if there's another answer.
Well, simply he was on doing what Allah wants him to do.
He was simply doing what Allah wanted him to do. MashaAllah. An answer of a Sufi.
Wow. That was mind-blowing.
Inshallah, I will sit in his dars soon.
Brother Tabriz.
So, you know what? It's been covered, isn't it?
Say what
so why did you raise your hand?
I didn't raise my hand.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, you have the microphone now, so...
Okay. I can't remember what the brothers have said. They were here to serve the creation of Rahmatul Alameen, making sure that, they took as many people as they could into the better life in the hereafter.
Okay, mashallah. So let's make it simple for everyone, inshallah. The entity that we all worship is who? Allah. Yes? That's Allah Azza Jalla Jalalahu. That's the entity that we worship. So when we measure someone, i.e. in piety or whatever it might be, the measurement is actually how in obedience are they to Allah. Okay. So that's the entity that we worship. Then Allah sent to the earth prophets who do what? In essence, call you to worship or tell you about Allah. Now, everyone agree with me so far? Does anyone not understand what I'm saying? It's a very simple equation that I'm going to go through, and it will help you massively in your lives. So the entity or the being that we worship and who is pre-eternal and is eternal is Allah. Then Allah has sent us to this earth, and Allah sent prophets and reminders, and all of them do what? They direct you to Allah. That's in essence what they do. And then that's what the Prophet ﷺ did finally, yes, as the final prophet. Now, who is the creator of this universe? Good. Who is the creator of the galaxy? Of the cosmos? Of everything that is small and large? Allah, yes? Does everyone agree? If anyone does not agree that Allah is a creator, well, please don't raise your hands, because that has an issue with faith, yes. But you can come and speak to me afterwards, because that's serious. But in essence, every single one answers very simply, Allah created everything. Allah is the most important being. That's truth. Whether we prioritize Allah as the most important, that's a separate question. But by truth, the truth is, as a statement of truth, Allah is the ultimate. Allah is the creator of everything. Allah is the most important. Those are all true statements. Now, so everything that we do, then we accept that it is Allah that gives us everything. Our jobs, our children, the table that I'm sitting up on, from what we might think the most, the lowest to the highest. That's all given to us by Allah. Allah is everything. Allah is what? Everything. Now, anyone who is on the face of this earth, like what made the prophets, why did they have the highest ranks of people? Because they did what? They were directing you to that which is everything, that which is our Lord. So when the Prophet of Allah was walking this earth, he was the most important thing, because he was calling everyone to Allah. Whether you were a prince or whether you were a pauper, the message is for all of you, because Allah is in everyone's life. We've all been told to connect to Allah. So very simply, the ultimate Allah When someone is on this earth calling you to Allah, you are the most important. Now the Prophet ﷺ was the most important because he knew Allah the most. He had the most maghrifa of Allah, and he called people to Allah. Now, that should give you a glimpse into one of the reasons why the Prophet ﷺ is now important. But let me take that to extend that slightly. Now that the Prophet ﷺ has taken physical departure from this world, who do you think would be the next most important person on this earth, all the people on this earth? Who said the Ummah? Okay, one brother said the Ummah. Anyone else? Raise your hands for this one. My brother Zafar, just the brother in the green, please.
Is it not the awliya of Allah?
The?
Awliya of Allah.
The awliya of Allah, but why? Anyone else, brothers that can help him? There's everyone in the back row has got their hands up. MashaAllah. Look at that engagement.
It's awliya Allah because they spread the deen into the public.
Yes.
And they make the arshad and they spread the deen, and that's why they are most important bodies in the earth.
MashaAllah.
Since I'm here.
It goes back to love. The people who have the highest love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are the ones.
Okay, and someone finally from the back row, inshallah. All of those answers are correct. But there's an answer that obviously logically flows from what I said.
It's the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu and his family.
MashaAllah. Thank you. Perhaps my question wasn't clear for that one. It was who physically on this earth. That's fine, I think. Oh, I'll let that go.
Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Radiyallahu Ta'ala anhu.
Okay, MashaAllah. So this is the benefits of sitting at the front versus the back. Everyone who was sitting at the front understood the question and answered the question. And as the rows went back and back, it seems my question changed. And they were answering a different question, but they were answering the same question. So clearly something happens as you sit at the back. So as an example to everyone, those at the front understood and answered the right question. And as it went, I'm not saying what everyone said at the back was correct, but that wasn't the question that I asked. It goes back to what the Sheikh was saying. You ask someone for their name and they give you their address. Okay, mashallah. So the answer is in what everyone said. So if the Prophet of Allah, one of the reasons I said that he was the most important entity being walking on the face of the earth was because he was calling people to the greatest, which is Allah. Now, since the Prophet has taken physical departure, the people that are left on this earth, i.e. physically walking this earth, the ones that are going to be the most important or are going to be the ones that call you to who? Allah. Simple. It's very simple. The equation is simple. Those who call you to Allah. Then amongst those who call you to Allah, the ones that most resemble the Prophet, the ones that most act in his sunnah in calling you, they are going to be the most important. Because the Prophet ﷺ was he was a master of everything, but he didn't. When he engaged with people, was his purpose to make them scholars? When he engaged with someone, did he say that you are a Muslim, and as a Muslim, this derives from the Arabic language, it's on fourth form for Islam, it's something that's causative, and therefore it's something about bringing about change? Did he go through all these definitions with them? Yes or no? Did he go? So why am I saying this? Because you get different types of people that will call you to Allah in different ways, which is all good. There's nothing wrong with that. But for the Prophet of Allah, the way he put the message, the way he delivered the message, was he did it in a manner which was, like I said in the beginning, Prince to Pauper. It was a very simple message for everyone to understand. And then what did we learn from, even when I mentioned yesterday from Daif, that he made that message his priority. Now, on the face of this earth, the people that are doing that, therefore, they have the tawajjuh. Allah looks upon them. They are the most important people. That's why you and I are sitting here. That's why I said, goes back to why there are people from the bottom to the top in this building that are here doing things voluntarily, because they are trying to connect with someone that they believe walks on the path of the Prophet and is therefore someone that is going to be very close to Allah, and therefore by definition, listen to this very carefully, this is where people always, then therefore one of, if not the most important walking on the earth. Just logic should take you to that conclusion. It's not going to be the king, it's not going to be the queen, it's not going to be the prime minister, it's not going to be Bill Gates, it's not going to be Donald Trump, it's not going to be any of these people, it's not Muhammad Salah, in spite of what the Liverpool fans might tell you. It's not all of these people that we aspire to be, who have carried great influence. It will always come to the people that call you to Allah. And the people that lived in the time of the Prophet, his own people, let alone the people around, they didn't recognize his importance. And those that did, they attained salvation. Nothing changes for you and I here. We also have the opportunity to connect ourselves with people that are amongst the most important to Allah. And if you connect yourself to some people who are most important to Allah, think about that Allah Azza wa Jal, the most important being, the one that created all of us, he may look upon us, that we can have a connection to him. And that's why one of the biggest things that we do when has this developed, we talk about why the teacher and the guidance is so important that comes from them. So inshallah, and just as we now inshallah go to the Shamail, one of the things that now this is interesting. The Shamail, as you said, is a description of the Prophet of Allah. So we'll inshallah go through some of this, and so that goes to the statement that we said. What does it say on the screen? What's the answer? Someone can read out. You can't love someone you don't know anything about. Who disagrees with that statement? You genuinely agree with that, don't you? Okay. So, we've talked about most of this. So we're going to focus on the physical form and the beauty of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, his noble body has not and will not be matched by any other. I'm going to do one more description. I'm just going to ask you. It is he whose meaning and form attained perfection. SubhanAllah. Now, we're going to go through the features of the Prophet of Allah. What are we going to go through? Has anyone here seen the features of the Prophet of Allah? With their physical eye? No. So so you're going to have to do something, aren't you? When we go through these descriptions, what are you going to have to do? Imagine, visualize, anything else? Think. You have to do all of these things. When we do the ascension, we talk about 3 stages of your journey. What's the first stage? Thought. What's the second stage? And what's the excelled state? Visualizing. Now, based on what you're being asked to do here, is there anything wrong with being at thought level? Is imagination a dirty word? Yes or no? Why am I sitting here and asking you this question? Okay, Brother, if you just pass the microphone to Uncle Iqbal for a moment, please. Because he raised his hand, that's why. So why am I asking you the question? Why am I saying, is imagination a dirty word? Or a negative word?
It is not a negative word, but we mostly assume that people who think they're imagining, they think, I am not achieving this.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
I can't describe it. What you should be highest of it when you can imagine it.
Absolutely. That was what I would say a pitch perfect answer. Did you hear what what Uncle Iqbal said? For the benefit of everyone else, no. Okay, mashallah. I will say it again anyway, but for the benefit of everyone else, I asked the question, so here we're going to talk about the noble features of the Prophet of Allah. And I said, have any of you seen this? And let me just do the story for you all again. You all answered to say that, no, you haven't seen the Prophet ﷺ with your naked eye. So I said, so when I speak about the features, what will you have to do? And people said, think. People said, imagine, visualize. All of these words came. And people said it proudly. And I said, then, is imagination a negative word? Is it a dirty word? I prefer to use negative now, actually. And everyone was like, no. And I said, well, why am I asking you that question? And Uncle Iqbal said the following. He said that when we're doing our ascension, effectively, when we're here talking about our travels, we always, when we talk about imagination, we give it what type of usage? Negative usage. When we're giving our feedback, people are asking questions like, oh, it's my imagination, oh, but I don't think I was actually seeing, I was imagining, and so forth. They are making it something negative. What are they making? Negative. But yet, I'm asking you to hear that the Quran asks you, the Sunnah demands of you imagination. What does it do? It demands it of you. It tells you, when the Quran tells you, who is speaking in the Quran? Allah. The Quran is the pre-eternal word of Allah. And when you're being warned against a fire whose food is men and stone, when you're giving those descriptions, what are you expected to do? Imagine. When you're being told of a Jannah with fruits beyond anything that you've seen, what is being demanded of you? Imagination. When the Prophet of Allah, the most important, the beloved of Allah, is saying to you, think about death. And if you do so, in some narrations say at least 25 times in a day, you'll be someone that's saved. What is being demanded of you? Do you have to imagine death, don't you? Because if you are dead, then you have an issue. There's a demand of being thinking. There's a demand of imagining. And in those contexts, all of us would love to do what? Imagine. Now, continue with this for a moment. If you are imagining these things, or we're being demanded by the Quran, by the Prophet, by Hadith, to imagine, because by imagining it will increase our faith. And by increasing our faith, it will lead us to what direction we want to go to, which is paradise, to Allah. So imagination is fundamental to our belief, and it's fundamentally a positive thing. It's something that we have to do. Therefore, it has to be what? It needs to be nurtured. And that is why when we have our feedback sessions, we've had retreats where we've said to people to relay their experience, and they can't use the word what? Imagination. Because it hurts when we're talking about this, that people are using the word imagination in a negative context when we're being demanded by the Quran, which is demanded by Allah, to imagine. So we've had retreats where we said, don't use that word. Because like someone's riding a bike, there's a process. Thought, imagination, and then visualize, and your spirit sees. All of these are connected to the spirit. The thought level is part of the spiritual experience. Imagination is part of the spiritual experience. Dreaming is part of the spiritual experience. Now, if you start blocking yourself because you can't go from zero to hero, and you're like, and then, because you don't believe you can go from zero to hero, oh, I've come here for one day, I'm not, I think I'm visualizing, no, I think I'm imagining, no, I think it's all good. It's all good, it's all positive, and it's all demanded of you by the Quran and by the Sunnah. That's what we're being asked to do. That's what's being asked to be nurtured. So that's what's being asked of us. That's what's being demanded of us. And we need to come to that. So next time when we, inshallah, go through this, we should have a real change in our mindset about what we're saying, about how we're saying it and our approach to this. Because this isn't, some of us, we're used to a system of academia, yes? We go to school and we're told how to pass, these are the answers and this gets you through to the exams. And we approach Deen like that. It's like a checklist. It really is. It's like, okay, I read the Quran when I was 5. I don't have to read the Quran again. I've had a dream of the Prophet. Oh, wow, I'm saved. That's ticked off my list. If you've approached these retreats like that, then you're going to fail from day one, even if you see something. Because this is a religion that requires constant refinement, constant evolution in your character. You have to continuously be renewing. You can't just, when you read the Quran by 5, you're not saved. Or 7 or 8. Your deen doesn't stop when you leave that dars or that madrasa. Your deen doesn't stop when you are old enough to say to your parents, I'm not going. Your deen doesn't stop when you when you've had a nice dream. It's constant. And if we're approaching this like, okay, I'm here, yes, you should have objectives. I'm not disagreeing with that. In fact, I encourage that because it gives you focus. But it shouldn't be, I'm coming here, I'm here to do this, tick, and then that's it, I'm off. It's a process that's ongoing. And that's the approach that we should have. And that's what we should have in terms of the imagination as well. Something that we should be proud of and something that we should nurture. Because like riding a bike, there's different techniques to riding a bike. Some people ride a bike using what? Stabilizers. And some use what's it called? A balance bike. Have any of you come across a balance bike? It's a newer thing. So a balance bike, so this is amazing how things change. A stabilizers, you put stabilizers on and the focus is for your child to do what? To pedal. So you're getting them to pedal, and once they pedal and they get used to riding a bike, then you take off the stabilizers and then you stand behind them and they get you out of breath, and you run behind them and they're pedaling, and eventually you let go, and then you're hoping that they'll keep pedaling and they have balance. So that's the pedal approach, with stabilizers. A balance bike is a bike that has no stabilizers and has no pedals. So it's a frame of a bike, and what happens is a child sits on the bike and they use their feet to push along. The balance bike is the focus is on balance as opposed to pedaling. So they want the child to get balance first. Now, interestingly, as I said, I've got 4 children. 2 of them learnt on the stabilizing method, and 2 of them learnt on the balance bike method, just because what worked for them. And the one with the balance, they use their feet, and then eventually they start doing what? What do kids do? They start whizzing. Their feet are off the ground, and they've got their balance. So for them, they just have to start pedaling. And vice versa, for the ones that got the strength to start pedaling, for them it's you take the stabilizers off, and you're hoping because they're pedaling, they'll pick up the balance quickly. They're all different techniques, but they lead into what? They're leading to riding a bike. Ultimately, that's the objective. Now, there's different methods and techniques that we speak, but whether you're thinking, whether you're imagining, it's all leading to the same destination. That's the point, inshallah. So on this now, I'm going to now go through the Shamail of the Prophet ﷺ. What does a Shamail require? It's going to be me reading. Now, what I might do this time is, and perhaps Brother Duffer, you can facilitate this as well, is that I will start, and then what I will do is I will ask each person just to read from the screen. Does that make sense? So that I will do some, and then you will do some, and then just pass it on to the next person. And then remember, now it's all about our mindset. We're going to be talking, because we want to have mashahid of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the objective of this retreat, to have closeness, to see him. So we want to start building this image in our mind, this beautiful image, this beautiful imagination, so that we can connect to the Prophet of Allah, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So in terms of his noble features, face and complexion, they said, not completely circular, but slightly round in shape, neither elongated nor completely circular. The complexion of the Prophet ﷺ, it was neither extremely pale nor dark brown, radiant and mixed with a bit of redness. His face shone like the light of the full moon. It said that a companion came up on the Prophet ﷺ one night, and the moon was shining. And he looked up on the face of the Prophet, and then he looked at the moon, and then he looked up on the Prophet, and then he looked up on the moon. And he did this for a few times. And he goes that by Allah, the face or the radiancy of the Prophet was more than the moon. But that's the correlation that was always given. And the moon isn't always, if you look at a full moon, it has a tinge to it. They say the harvest moon. Of his eyes, they say they were large and they were wide. The lines of his eyes were dark, as if he had applied khul. They were very black, and they had very dark pupils. When he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would turn to look at someone or something, he would turn with his whole body. What would he do? What does that show in terms of social and emotional intelligence? That he values who you are. You know, what don't you like is that when you're giving someone salam and they're still looking, is that slightly disrespectful? Of course it is. I get offended by it. You know, not because I'm sensitive, but because I'm thinking, if I'm giving you the courtesy or giving me salam, then at least please look at me when you're doing that. But the Prophet of Allah, when someone would come and engage with him, he would turn his entire body to them, saying that you are my priority. I'm thinking of you. You know, yesterday, the Sheikh, this is exactly what he, Sheikh Ahmed Dawah was speaking about when he went through the people of Allah, you know, the ones that have established prayer, and the signs are that they have love for the have-nots, effectively. Because they befriend the have-nots, Allah befriends them. They feed the have-nots and Allah feeds them. They give complete attention to these people. That's where you won't have a compassion unless you turn to these people, give them full tawajjuh, fullness. That's what the Prophet of Allah did. He turned to these, when he spoke to someone, he turned to them fully. He would look casually at people and things and would not stare at them directly. This came from the hayya of the Prophet of Allah. What did it come from? There was a shyness to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, the hadith are, you know, they give very, I wasn't say extreme, but very extreme analogies on how shy the Prophet of Allah was. Very shy. And so even when they say that you shouldn't look up on a non-mahram, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam will struggle to even look up on anyone. They go that he would avoid direct eye contact. He would look at them casually. He would look at the ground more than he would look into the sky. The bridge of his nose was high and light rose from it. And of his eyelashes, they were lush, so numerous that they nearly appeared joined. So inshallah, if I'm going to just ask you to start on the right. And just for everyone just to read, and read it longingly. Yeah, not like you're reading a text.
Long and full, perfectly shaped, but without connecting.
His eyebrows were speaking.
Slight, almost
discernible
space between his eyebrow, which appears as if it was pure silver.
Absolutely. They were slight, they were almost indiscernible, i.e. the space between his eyebrows. So his eyebrows would come together, but they weren't joint. There was a slight gap, and which appeared as if it was pure silver. Between them was a vein that would appear when he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would become angry. And they say of his cheeks, they were even. This theme of even comes again and again, doesn't it, when we speak about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Neither too tall, neither too short. Why does this come up again and again? Because it's what Brother Shawkat at the back said. He was what? Perfection. There's nothing, that's what we believe in. He was an environmentalist. Everything that he had the highest emotional intelligence, the highest social intelligence. He was perfection in every single form. Of his mouth, they go that when he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would laugh, he would shine and light could be seen emitting from between his blessed teeth. We have with us Hafiz Ishan, and he recites a nasheed in Urdu and Ishan. What is the other language that nasheed is? Pashto. It's in Urdu Pashto, and it's a beautiful hadith, a beautiful poem. But it references a hadith where Aisha radiallahu anha speaks of when she dropped the sewing needle, and it was dark in the house, and the Prophet ﷺ came, and then he smiled, and then she found the needle through the glittering light that emitted from him. His blessed teeth were well spaced. He had a slight space between his front teeth, and when he would speak, light could be seen emitting from between them. He had the most beautiful lips and the most delicate closed mouth of all of Allah's servants. Now, inshallah, as we continue, can I just ask everyone just to close their eyes for a moment? And then now it's up to you when you want to open or close them. And just visualize what we're saying, inshallah. And off his forehead, of his beard, it was thick. And they said that when he would rest his head on his chest, the beard would hang there. Of his forehead, it was blessed and it was large. His forehead was wide, bright, and it was luminous. His hair was neither extremely curly, nor was it straight. It was slightly wavy. He had a full head of hair that reached his earlobes or down to his shoulders. It was slightly parted, and if it parted easily, he, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, would part it in the middle, and if not, he would then leave it. His hair was extremely black. They say that of his neck, it was like that of a statue, and it was like as if it was silver. It was neither long nor short. The part of his neck which was exposed, the bit that you could see, when it was exposed to the sun or the wind, it was like a pitcher, a silver jug mixed with gold, and it was shining on account of the radiance and that would emit from it. His chest was broad. His upper chest had hair, and a thin line of hair ran from his chest down to his navel. Of his shoulders, it is said that they were broad. His shoulders had hair, and between his shoulders, adjacent or next to his right shoulder, was the seal of the prophets, one of the signs of prophecy. And a black mole, so the seal was a black mole with a slight yellowish tint, with a number of hairs around it that resembled a horse's mane. Another narration describes it as a reddish-coloured piece of flesh that was like a pigeon's egg. To say he had of his back, it was wide, and it looked like pure silver. Of his height, they say he was neither excessively tall, nor was he short. He had medium stature, though inclining to tallness. And they would say that one of the miracles of the Prophet was that when he would walk with his companions, even though they may have been physically taller than him, when anyone would look upon him when he was walking in a group, he would always look amongst the tallest. Of his stomach, his chest and stomach were even with each other. And his stomach had 3 folds. One of them was covered by a loincloth, and the other 2 were visible, i.e. 3 folds, where the muscles of the stomach can be seen. His hands were soft and thick, and his palms were wide. And the fingers were long and well proportioned, and they were like rods of silver. He, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, loved using the right hand for everything, taking and giving. To say his upper arms were well built, they were long and wide, and his forearms are wide. His arms had hair, and the parts which did not have any hair, they shone excessively brightly. His legs, his thighs, and his calves, they were well built. His shanks had slenderness, i.e. the calf element had slenderness to them. Slenderness is a praiseworthy quality. When he would walk with vigor, he would walk with purpose, as if he was descending from a rock or walking down a slope. They say that when he, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, would walk, he would incline forward as he walked, bringing his footsteps close together, and there was no swagger in his walk. When he walked, he would not look here or there. He was always walking with a purpose, walking with a destination. Never would 2 or more men walk directly behind him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If there were 3, he would walk between them. And if there were more, then he would put some of them to walk in front. No one would walk faster than him. It was as if the earth folded itself up for him. The companions would tire themselves in exertion walking with him, but for him it was effortless. This came as a common theme amongst the companions, that when they walked with the Prophet ﷺ, even though they thought they were walking at the same pace, he was always outpacing them, as if he was floating. And he had, as of his feet, they were the most beautiful of all feet. They were wide and they were thick. And his feet were smooth, such that if water was poured over them, it would just run right off. They were slight, they were beautiful, and his feet were well proportioned. His toes were long and well proportioned. The length of his big toe exceeded the length of all his other toes. And when he, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, would put on his sandals, he would begin with his right foot, and when he would take them off, he would begin with his left foot. When he would enter the mosque, he would always enter with his right foot. He was light upon light. And when he would walk in the sunlight or moonlight, he did not cast a shadow. If it was as if the sun shone upon his face, and when he would laugh, his light would shine upon the walls. He was more beautiful than the moon, and his sweat appeared on his face like beads of pearls, they would shine. He was radiant as if he was fashioned from silver. And that was one of the miracle of the Prophet, that he had no shadow. When the Messenger of Allah ﷺ would look into a mirror, he would say, "All praise is due to Allah, who fashioned my creation and gave it proportion, who honoured my face and made it beautiful, and who made me one of the Muslims." Even when he's looking upon the mirror, in a mirror, look at his praise directly goes to Allah. So, if everyone just open their eyes for a moment. So just to summarize again, that this retreat is the retreat of the Muhammadan opening. There's going to be a connection to the Prophet. Now we've gone through the Shamail ever so briefly, but it's for you to bring some context and to reflect upon everything that we spoke about, i.e. the features of the Prophet. The muraqabahs will of course allow you to do that, but they will assist with the muraqabah. And they go that, just as a final, just concluding comment, one of the 4 goals that we speak about when you're looking to attain the rida of Allah, i.e. the pleasure of Allah, is that you can't make Allah pleased with you. Yes? Can you make Allah do anything? No, absolutely not. But there's things that are in your control that you can do, which if you do, you'll be in the hope that Allah will be pleased with you. And the first of those is that you love Allah and you give Him preference, i.e. obedience to His commands. For example, when you wake up at Fajr, or when the time of Fajr enters, at that time there's a command of Allah which is telling you to do what? Pray Fajr. At that time you have a choice. You can continue to sleep, or you can get up and pray Fajr. If you sleep, you have preferred what? Your sleep over Allah. You preferred yourself. But if you wake up and pray, who have you preferred? Allah. That's exactly how you show preference to Allah. And then they go, and this is the bit that we're focusing on, the love of the Messenger, Allah, and preferring his sunnah. What do we mean by that? And this is an example that I've gone through many a time when we've come that. Why is it important to prefer the Prophet over all others? Why is it important to love the Prophet over all others? So let me deal with the love first, because this comes up often. Is there, and the hadith that is anchored in is the hadith of Umar radiallahu anh, one of the foremost companions of the Prophet of Allah, a companion that the Prophet made supplication for to strengthen Islam to one of two people. One was Abu Jahl and one was Umar radiallahu anh. And they go with that when the angels took that supplication, that they actually came to Abu Jahl first. But they found him worshipping an idol, and they took that supplication away, and they granted it upon Umar radiallahu anh. And then when he became Muslim, he became one of the staunchest defenders of the Prophet of Allah. And they say that when... Now, what was Umar? What was his title? What did I say it was? Al-Faruq, which is what? Yes, he's a distinguisher between that which is good, that which is truthful, and that falsehood. So by that we know that he is someone that speaks what? The truth. Now, so this is when he came upon the Prophet, and this is when they had the engagement. The hadith refers, in my wording, that that he said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, I can love you more than my parents, more than anything, but I can't actually say that I can love you more than myself. Look at the truth in that statement. Absolute truth. Because they go, the love for the self is one of the greatest loves. It really is. We don't like to say it, but they go, why do you think you can have someone stuck in the Grand Canyon with a boulder on their hand, but for their love for themselves, the need to survive, they can cut off with their penknife the entire arm? Can you imagine that? You have to cut off your arm with a penknife. The excruciating pain, but your love that forces you to do that, the love of the self, I want to survive, that overrides the pain that they're going through. So the love of the self is great. And here Umar radiallahu anh is telling, that's the lesson to take, that look how great the love of yourself is. And then when he said that to the Prophet, and think what he's saying, he goes, I'm prepared to, when they say sacrifice my parents, I love you more than my parents. That's basically what he's saying. I can do that. Is that an extreme love? Yes or no? To love someone more than you love your parents? Yes, it's an extreme love. So it's not like he was talking about a deficiency in his love, but he goes, but I can't say that I love you more than myself. And then the Prophet ﷺ said what? Your iman is not complete. I remember when I first heard that hadith, I was like, wow, not complete? And then this is the nature of the companions, and he goes, in which case I'll love you more than anything. Now, coming back to this point of love that I mentioned, so another thing to say that when people say, "Oh, but you," this is the kind of society we live in now, and our mindset that when you say to some people, and you may or may not in this room, mashallah, you people probably don't think like that. Perhaps me or others that I've come across, when you say to them that it's said to them that you should love the Prophet more than anything, they think that as sometimes a negative thing. Well, shouldn't I love my parents the most, or shouldn't I love my children the most, and so forth, as if that's like a righteous thing to do. So then it's very simple. Love your parents as much as you can. Love them truly, and you know how much you love them and how obedient you are to them. Period. It's not that hard to think about that in terms of accordance to Sharia, but. So I'm saying to you, love your parents as much as you can, love them. Love your children as much as you can, love them. Yep. So find in your mind that love that you have, that extreme love that you have for your parents or your children. Have that love, make it optimum. All that you're being asked is find that optimum love, just love the Prophet more. Because people have this other mindset, but if I love the Prophet the most, then I have to lessen my love for anything else. No, absolutely not. Perfection is actually no one's asking you to lessen your love. We don't have to be stingy. We might be stingy in giving. We shouldn't be stingy in everything else that we do in our lives. Don't lessen your love. All you're saying is find that complete love and then just do something extra. Just love the Prophet more. That's all you're being asked to do. So find that optimum love for whatever you like. Just love the Prophet more. And why is that important? Because there's a thing that comes up next, which is preferring the Prophet. Because what will happen in life is that if you love something else or you give something else priority, there will come a time when the sunnah of the Prophet and the actions that you do, there might be a conflict. What might there be? A conflict. So, someone give me an example. Yeah. Someone pass the mic to Haji Ramzan, please?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If we don't love the Prophet more than ourselves, then the prime example that comes to me, especially for men folk, is in the morning, those men who shave, when as soon as you start shaving, now you've preferred yourself more than you have Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Yeah, so the example that Haji Ramzan did, and it's an example that you can amplify, i.e., if you love something, your style or something else more, you're going to give that preference over what? The sunnah of the Prophet. It's very simple. That's how it works. It's just that I love the Prophet, someone could say, that then, and they do, there's a degree of love there. But then something comes up between what they like to do and what the sunnah demands of them. And then whichever that you love more, that which you want to do or that which is a sunnah, very simple. When those two things come into conflict, that which you love more will prevail. That which you love more will prevail. So if you love your fashion or your style or something more, then that will give priority over the sunnah. But if you love the Prophet more, then that will give you, then you will prefer that over that which you like. And that was the companions. Their stories were all about loving the Prophet more than anything else that they did. You know, they always gave him preference. And that's why they had this ecstasy of love. They say that after the Battle of Uhud, just the fact that companions heard that the Prophet had lost a tooth, the ones that hadn't even witnessed it they took out their own tooth just to resemble the Prophet. Because that's what love does. It makes you do crazy things. That's the nature of love. You do crazy things when you love someone. And that's why when they did things that we might think are crazy, but that for them was simply just a manifestation of their love, inshallah. So I'm going to conclude on that note. Before I do, is there any questions that are relevant to what we spoke about? And think about the questions that you ask, please. You know, how is it going to further your knowledge, your connection, inshallah? So we'll take a few minutes now with answering some questions, if you have any.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
When you describe the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with like a silver pack or the neck with the gold, the jug with silver, I find that hard to imagine as a human. How can you imagine that it was a silver pack? Like, I don't know how.
That's a good question. So what does silver denote? What does silver suggest? It's something that's shiny. It's polished. Yes? That's what you're asked to do. Don't necessarily think of like a silver statue. It's the radiancy that you're being asked to look at. That's why you're given similitudes, i.e. an example that when you look up on something that's beautiful, something that's radiant, something that's shining. So look at it in that sense. Inshallah.
Ustadh Majid, you mentioned about you gave the analogy with the imagination and visualization for us to try and do that with when you were describing Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, the question was, how do you go from imagination to visualization? Because on the retreats one could argue that, well, I could imagine it without coming here anyway. So, how do we progress beyond that, or what's the difference?
So, as always, Aziz asks the most. I don't have to argue with that. It's fine. I'll answer it. Of course you can. You can read the Quran at home, can you not? You can do most things that you have to do. Nothing is. It goes back to the point I'm making. Nothing is forcing you to be here, save the fact that you know that you're going to benefit by coming here. Yes. Now, in answer to his question, how do you know? he's asking exactly the same question that's asked on the feedback. How do you know whether you go from imagination to visualization? What's the thing that we say? Is don't worry about it. Because just the analogy I gave you, if my children ask me, Abuji, when will I be able to ride my bike without the stabilizers? You're asking literally that question. I don't know. It's not. I do know. It will happen in time, and it will just happen. What will happen? They will go from riding, whether it's a balance bike or whichever method they're using. It's a stage process. So those of you who have children, when children start learning to pedal, do they do full pedal from day one? No, they don't. They do a partial pedal. What do they do? So you have to get them on the bike, the stabilizer's on, so let's go with the stabilizer method. And then, so first we ask them to bring the thought to mind, and they start pedaling. But what they do, they always pedal half. And then, but if you find, what do they do when it's, but they can pedal full backwards. And then they pedal half, and then you get them past the half. And then eventually, they say, I remember when I had to, I'm not suggesting that you do this, but when my son was learning to ride a bike, and this is going to be pushy parenting to the next level, and I was trying to get him to do a full pedal, and it just wasn't clicking. And I didn't want to start being one of those people and saying, oh, why can't you just do it? Obviously, there's a reason he can't do it. So what I did was I got a couple of books and put the stabilizers on the books. So now when he pedals, the bike won't go anywhere. Then I got some tape, and I taped his feet to the pedals. Yes, it doesn't. It's not as bad as you might be imagining right now. Yeah. So I taped his feet to the pedals, and then I just did it a few times. So he's just going around, and then it just eventually what happened? It just clicked. Because I couldn't describe it to him again and again. Do a full pedal. He understood what I meant, but for some reason it just wasn't clicking. So by putting the books there, and so the bike's raised, so when he pedals now, it won't. So I taped up his feet to the bike, and then I just did it a few times, and then eventually it just clicked. But it required a bit of practice. That's the same when you're here on the retreats. The moment that you embrace. But one thing he embraced that he wanted to ride a bike. He definitely wanted to ride a bike, and no one wants to ride a bike with stabilizers. I can assure you of that. No child. When they want to ride a bike, they want to get to the station when they see those people on the mountain bikes racing up. That's their goal. That's where they want to be. But they even understand that there's a process that they have to go through. And so it's no different from there. But one thing that they do, when they're riding the bike, I was saying that they embrace riding a bike. They embrace it. It's not something, they're not agitated necessarily, I want to get to that. Now, if you embrace each process, then it will get you to the point of seeing or having that more, what I think people are looking for, that more natural transfer, the constant seeing. Yes, that's where you will get to. But first you have to embrace the thinking, embrace the imagination, and then very quickly the stabilizers will be off and you will be having clear visions. Does that make sense? And that's the approach that you should take. But if the Quran is telling us to imagine, imagining increases what? It should be increasing your faith in any event. Doesn't make sense. And this is helping facilitate that process. And the more, because it will always come back in full circle, because the point of ascension, imagination, and then getting to visual, getting to seeing, having that anal yaqeen, is when you have that and increases your faith, it makes you more steadfast on your journey to Allah. That's it. Don't always hold those two objectives hand in hand. The main thing is getting to Allah, being obedient to Allah, following what Allah's asked you to do, being positive with your organs, not negative with your organs, doing all of that. But it's all about boosting that. And so the imagination, then the anal yaqeen will all help you with going on that process. Does that answer your question? Good. Brother Kashif, yes. I might have to make this the last question. So hopefully it will be the best question. No pressure. Oh, it's not a question. It's a comment.
I'm allowed to comment?
You have the microphone now.
Okay, thank you. No, it's just the comment to the brother's question. I just wanted to share my own experience. I don't know if it will help. Before hearing and knowing about these retreats, about imagination, I didn't know anything about that thinking or something. But before coming to these retreats, I have never in my life spent 5 minutes about thinking or imagination about how the Prophet ﷺ looked. Even though I have read the Shamail, I have not sit down privately, closed my eyes, and thought about how Prophet ﷺ looked before I came here. So I was just thinking, if I see them spiritually or not, just to spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes about thinking or imagination is the greatest ibadah one can do anyway.
Alhamdulillah, that's a beautiful statement, and that's a good point. On that note, we'll conclude shortly. But remember, everything is a hujjah for you; it's a witness for you, and to be able to stand on the day of judgment and say that I came and I did this just to get closer, and to put that effort in, then we have reliance on Allah. You know, remember, it's a fadl of Allah, whether you see or not. And when you get into that mindset that actually I'm going to rely on Allah, truly rely upon Allah. That's to have contentment that Allah, if you allow me to see, it's better for me. If you don't allow me to see, that's better for me. But one of the things the key takeaway from this, however, in everything that we did, the connection to the Prophet ﷺ, is now to really, just like, look, everything is about a mindset change. That's what the Sheikh does. They take our mind and then they just swap it. When that mentality shift, for example, that's what it's about. So see, when you're sitting in this gathering, the mentality shift, when we spoke about imagination and thinking, that's fundamentally what the Shamail is all about. That's what we're doing. And look at the mindset. Everyone has a positivity when they're speaking about that. Yet in a couple of hours, when we'll do a meditation session and we get feedback, the mindset changes instantly. So all I'm asking is the mindset that you have now, bring that with you to the next feedback session, and understand that when Allah demands imagination from us, when the Prophet is demanding imagination from us, they do so because it will lead to something. It will lead to something, and that is exactly where we're getting to. And know also that the fact, one of the beauties of the Prophet ﷺ is that he shared everything that he had. What did he do? He shared everything. And so these retreats that we're doing, they're at a certain level. And the teacher is sharing everything with you. If they're sharing with you, it's a process they've gone through. So remember that there's going to be another level to this. So the more you attune yourself now, then there'll be more that you can do with this. More mushahidah, more engagement with the spiritual world. And that will bring much more in terms of benefits. Things that sometimes more appropriate to speak about in terms of mindsets, conversations, all of this thing that you can then begin. Imagine just entering another universe, and then you enter another universe, a galaxy, then there's so much more there to offer. You explore first, and after you explore, then there's so much benefit that you can take. Just like we take benefit from this world, there's going to be benefit that we can take from the spiritual world. Inshallah. I think I'm going to conclude on that. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Nashhadu la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Jazakallah, Ustadh Majid. Inshallah, we can pack up now and get ready for Zuhr Salah. And also, I was going to say, if